All right, guys, we're doing Would You Rather Part 2. We're breaking down rounds 5 through 8. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. See you on the other side.
All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Welcome in, brother. It's part 2 of the Would You Rather series.
Yes.
Rounds 5 through 8. How you feeling about it, Frank?
This is where champions are made. Rounds 5 through 8. This is where all the work and effort is put in for these rounds, baby. So, guys, pay attention. These rounds are key to your success this year.
That's right. Your 12-year-old nephew can draft rounds 1 through 4 and go as chalk as he wants to go. But once you get to 5 through 8, you got to know a little bit about a little bit here. Okay, guys? So we're going to help you out. What we're going to do is take each round, and we're going to have 2 guys that are going to be right near each other in that draft. And we're going to decide, do we want this guy or do we want this guy? Frankie's going to lay it out for us. I'm going to tell you who I want. Then Frankie's going to come out and tell you who he wants. So last episode, we agreed on 3 out of 4, Frankie, which was odd. We don't always agree, but hopefully we can have a little combative conversation today. How's that sound? All right,
love it.
Let's go. And we have no idea who the other one wants at this point. That's the other thing to put out there. All right, so let's see if we can get people on Instagram and TikTok to call you a cocksucker. Frankie, let's get going here.
Let's do it.
Let's do our Would You Rather.
Would you rather poke a stick up in your eye or eat a bag of shit? Sit up on a pineapple or throw it on her dick? I said, would you rather?
All right, guys, we're going into round 5 here, so let's keep that in mind. This first scenario that we're going to have in round 5, we're doing kind of a 0 RB strat. We've waited until round 5 to draft our first running back, which means we've got stud receivers, and maybe we went up for a quarterback and a tight end, or 3 receivers and a quarterback. Either way, this is our running back 1. Joe Mixon was drafted right in front of us, guys. The next 2 guys that we're trying to decide upon are going to be James Conner versus Chuba Hubbard, okay? Last year, James Conner was the running back 10. Chuba Hubbard last year was the running back 12. This year, their ECR, expert consensus ranking, back-to-back, guys. James Conner's 18, Chuba Hubbard's 17. Frankie, lay it out for us, brother. This one's a tough one.
This one is a tough one. And guys, how we're going to do this is I'm going to break down stats, and then I'm going to get to the facts, and then we're going to give you the opinion. So let's start with the stats, right? So James Conner, what did he do last year? Last year, he averaged roughly 14 points a game in half PPR. Very, very good year for James Conner. And when we look at just how well he did, he ended up having 236 rushing attempts, which, by the way, that's the most he's ever had in his NFL career. He's also had over 1,000 yards rushing, almost 1,100. He had 1,094, and then he also had 8 rushing touchdowns, which is third most all time for what he has done in the NFL. Now, from a receiving perspective, this is where it was really fascinating. People think James Conner, they think that brute force running style, which he does, he's done it since Pitt. Not just Pittsburgh, but in college at the University of Pittsburgh. Now, from a receiving perspective, he had 55 targets. 55 targets. He had 47 receptions, 414 yards receiving, and 1 receiving touchdown. Very, very good year for that of James Conner. Now, when we look at Chuba had absolutely a career year for him. He ended up having 250 rushing attempts. He had 1,195 rushing yards, and then he also ended up having 10 rushing touchdowns. Guys, when we look at his body of work from a receiving perspective, again, looking at Chuba Hubbard, he had 54 targets, 43 receptions. He only had 171 receiving yards, and he only had also 1 receiving touchdown. What does that equate to, guys? He averaged roughly about 15 points a game in half PPR. That's the stats. Let's get to the facts. The facts are when we look at the situation around him. So let's go to James Conner. Looking at the situation around James Conner today, guys, he has Marvin Harrison on the outside, who, by the way, holy shit. Did you see what he did over the offseason? It looks like he injected Tren into every facet of his being. I mean, he's huge looking. And in addition to that, you got Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, and obviously Trey McBride. But you also have Trey Benson. And we've been circling Trey Benson now for 2 years, wondering when this is going to happen for when he starts cutting into some of that of James Conner's workload. Now, when we look at Chuba's facts, what the situation is around him, right? It's a little bit crazy because Panthers just brought in Rico Dowdle. They also drafted Trevor Etienne, right? They also have Adam Thielen on the outside. They brought in Hunter Renfrow. They drafted T-Mac McMillan in the first round this year, guys, from a receiver perspective. They also have Xavier Legette. They also have Jalen Coker. So what I'm getting at is both of these guys have a lot of pieces around them, and they also have a couple backups that could be eating into somewhat of their workload should something happen.
All right, well, when we look at these guys, I'm going to start with James Conner. Okay, James Conner's not the sexy running back that everybody wants to draft and sees him on the board and goes, I have to take this guy. But he's been absolutely a stud for many, many years. And actually last year, what's interesting about James Conner is he was healthy. You know, I mean, he played 16 games last year.
Yeah.
You know, so when you see a healthy James Conner, the one thing that concerns me about James Conner is the receptions. It was the highest receptions he's ever had in his career. And I think it was because of how jacked up that offense was with Arizona. For some reason, Kyler Murray's been struggling throwing the ball. I think he struggles to see, to be perfectly honest. It's almost like he's a Drew Brees where he drops back and he's looking over the line like this, you know, to see if he can find a guy. I think he's having troubles with that. But we saw the troubles with him and Marvin Harrison last year. And where did that go? All the receptions went to James Conner and to Trey McBride, you know. So the James Conner receptions were as high as they were. I don't know that that's going to be the case. They have to figure out that offense. They've got to be able to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. and the receivers. So I think it was they were dealing with what they had and what they were dealing with last year, which is why his receptions went so high. Now, if those come down, otherwise, their entire stats between these two guys were almost exact and almost identical. I think the only difference is Chuba maybe had 2 more touchdowns. That was about it, but Conner had more receiving yards. So they were really about equal. When we look at Chuba, I think he doesn't have a bunch of guys breathing down his neck. Yeah, they brought in Rico Dowdle, but that's in break glass in case of emergency.
Sure.
You know, you're not going to lose a lot of touches to Rico Dowdle. But when you draft a high draft capital running back like Trey Benson, who we were very high on last year and were disappointed that he didn't really get that much opportunity. I think we also expected James Conner to miss a few games too. He didn't, so we didn't get to see that. But they're still going to be working in Trey Benson. Again, like you said, it's James Conner's biggest workload he's ever had. That's not great for an aging running back who has a history of soft tissue issues and getting hurt.
Yep.
So I'm a little concerned about that. For me, I'm taking Chuba Hubbard. I'm choosing him over that. I think they're an emerging offense. Their offensive line is greatly improved. And I think that with the weapons that they've brought on around Bryce Young, I think that's just going to help Chuba. He carried so much load last year. I think now it's going to open things up for him a little bit more. And I think he's just going to have a great year. I think his floor is very high. I think his ceiling is limited, but his receptions will come down a tad as well. But I think he's just the safer choice in a better offense that I think is going to be in a position to score more often than they were last year even, which will help Chuba Hubbard up.
Yeah, John, I'm with you. And so what I mean by that is, guys, I'm also leaning Chuba Hubbard here. And for me, the biggest reason, when you look at strength of schedule against that of running backs, Carolina has the easiest strengths versus defenses. If you're a running back, Carolina has the best strength of schedule, meaning they have the weakest, which is fantastic for running backs. And so then when you layer on, okay, looking at the body of work that Chuba's done over the course of the last few years, he was then honored with a 4-year, $33 million contract. And so you're not going to pay that and ship out Miles Sanders and do all of these things if this isn't your guy. And yeah, like you mentioned, they brought on Rico Dowdle, but it's a 1-year deal. And to your point, that's break glass in case of an emergency. That's not a rookie running back behind you that's really talented in Trey Benson from Florida State to where he's there And do we see him start getting into the workload a little bit more of James Conner? So guys, really, when you're looking at both of these, it's kind of you're splitting hairs, because you could also make the argument, John. I know you said kind of the floor is a little bit more there for that of Chuba. I actually think that with James Conner, he might be a little bit more safe, like in terms of perception, because we've seen James Conner for the last 2 years now have over 1,000 yards rushing. And people are like, you know what? If I wait, he's my RB1. That's kind of what I'm assuming he'll be, between 700 yards and 1,000 yards. Okay, cool. But I really think his ceiling is extremely capped. And so from when you look at Chuba, he's so much younger. We saw him come on, especially towards the back half of last year. And right, we had Andy Dalton majority of last year as well. And so when we saw Bryce Young come into fold, they got them a true receiver one. I think Xavier Leggett's going to take a step forward. So now they're going to have 2 good receivers. And then you layer in Hunter Renfrow. Guys, they're not going to be able to stack the box. They're not going to be able to do that against this Panthers offense. And it's kind of like, hey, if Bryce Young takes a shit, which I don't think he will, but if, they're going to have to rely on the rushing attack, full go, versus that of Kyler Murray. I don't foresee him taking a shit. I think he's going to be right around where he's projected, and I think he even has more upside because he'll be healthy walking in this year, and then he'll have, a receiver with Marvin Harrison walking into year 2 who should absolutely improve from his rookie year, so on and so forth, Trey McBride, etc. So for me, man, I'm with you in the sense of I'm also leaning Chuba Hubbard as your RB1. But again, it makes me a little uncomfortable, right? So you better make sure that those receivers are damn good, which they should be, right? If you're going into a 0 RB strat, maybe you took Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, or Joe Burrow, and right? Looking at the other episode we did between Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow in round 4, let's say that's when you took your quarterback. So you chose one of those guys, and now you're looking at that of Connor or Hubbard. Guys, we're splitting hairs, but I'm with you, John. I'm going Chuba Hubbard.
Does it change anything at all knowing that this has to be your running back 1? Week 1, this is your RB1 because you've got studs and 4 other guys and 4 other guys there. Does it change how you look at it between the two because it has to be your 1?
John, it would if Chuba Hubbard didn't have 2 good years of play. And what I mean by that, right? So Chuba's walking into his 5th year, guys. I just want to be crystal clear, but his rookie year wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. His sophomore year, he definitely took a step back. But then the last 2 years, man, he's been solid. I mean, you look at what he did in 2023 even. He had 902 yards rushing. He still ended up having 5 rushing touchdowns. He was still involved in the pass game with 44 targets and 39 receptions. And he actually had more receiving yards in 2023 than he did in that of 2024 last season. So yes, that would have changed my mind to where I would be leaning James Conner if it was just 1 year. But now that we've had 2 solid years and we've seen progression from Chuba Hubbard, and guys, he was really good out of college as well. We're not talking this was a fly-by-night 7th round draft pick. I mean, he's a 4th round draft pick that was really solid in college. So for me, man, knowing that we've now seen 2 really good years from Chuba when he shouldn't have been the guy, right? They signed Miles Sanders to a 3-year deal. They drafted Jonathan Brooks, and unfortunately, he just hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been able to see the field. And Chuba Hubbard said, hey, screw you guys. I'm taking this job and I'm running with it. To me, I'm comfortable in that sense now that we've seen the level of trajectory that he's been on.
The other thing I'm going to do is, these are 2 very safe guys. And when you're going to 0 RB strategy, I like taking my 1 being that guy that's going to be right around these 2 guys' range. Right around, 1,000, 1,100 yards, a handful of touchdowns. Give me somewhere in that middle range. Give me a safety net on my running back. Now, what I'll do after I draft these guys, since you went 0 RB, you're going to load up on some 0 RB talent after this. I'm going to go for some of these running backs. I'm going to go for some of these rookie running backs. Because I want to take Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey. Yeah. I want to take some flyers on some guys later that have possible massive upside if they get the nod or later down the season. So that way, if my safe guy that I'm worried about, and if it's James Conner or Chuba Hubbard, one of them goes down, I've got options behind that. Or I've got other ceiling plays where these guys can give me that, 14 points a week, and then I can find a guy who can give me some boner weeks here and there as well. So love that. All right, let's move on here. Let's go to round 6, Frankie. All right, round 6 here, guys. We're looking for a flex player. Okay, this is going to be a wide receiver 2 or a flex, some wide receiver depth. Likely to be a guy we're starting in week 1 as well. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So here we're looking at 2 receivers here, guys. George Pickens versus Jaylen Waddle. All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We just talked a little bit about George Pickens in our New Faces, New Places wide receiver episode. But George Pickens last year was a wide receiver 38. Jaylen Waddle was a wide receiver 49. This year, George Pickens is projected ECR expert consensus ranking at wide receiver 34. Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver 28. So very close to each other. And as the rounds go on, guys, and get longer, we're in round 6. There's going to be a much bigger pool of guys that you're going to be looking at. You're not going to see the big teardrops like you do in those first couple of rounds. So there's a lot of guys in this range that you'll be looking at, but George Pickens and Jaylen Waddle will be one of them, or 2 of them. Frankie, lay it out for us.
Guys, so looking at the stats to start, George Pickens, let's go there. In 2024, guys, he averaged roughly about 10 points a game in half PPR. And looking at his body of work, he was pretty damn solid, man. He ended up having 103 targets, 59 receptions, 900 yards receiving, and he had 3 touchdowns. Now, a few call-outs there. The 3 touchdowns is the lowest he's had since he's been in the NFL. So he's been in the NFL now 3 years, guys. He's walking into year 4. The 3 touchdowns was brutal. And also the amount of receptions, right? That was actually second. So that was the second most that he's had in the NFL. So when you also then factor in some of the other elements, I mean, the reality is that he also missed a few additional games last year. And when you also look at from a stat perspective on his yards per reception or yards per target, actually, guys, he is a boom bust kind of cat. And what I mean by that is he is a downfield threat. He's a better, younger version of what we saw from Tyler Lockett, except in a more larger frame. Like, he's a 50-50 ball kind of guy, but I'm trying to put it in the mindset of a boom bust kind of cat, knowing like when you're looking at 103 targets, 59 receptions, right? And you're having 900 yards, you're getting the ball down the field. You're not a PPR kind of cat. Now, when we're looking at Jaylen Waddle, it's actually the inverse, because Jaylen Waddle, guys, is more of a PPR cat. And what he did is he actually averaged 8 points a game and half PPR last year. And when you look at his full body of work, he had 83 targets, 58 receptions, 744 yards receiving, 2 receiving touchdowns. But he was also banged up last year. We saw him constantly in and out of the lineup, and it was a mess. And then you saw Tua Tagovailoa again banged up and all sorts of things. So the stats are a bit skewed in that sense, because when you look at what Jaylen Waddle as well has done, let's say the year before, in 2023 and in 2022, I mean, guys, last year was the only year Jaylen Waddle hasn't eclipsed over 1,000 yards. And actually, last year was also the only year that he's had under 4 total touchdowns for the season. So it was strictly due to situation, as well as banged up, as well as Tua going down. Now let's talk the facts. What is the situation around him? Let's keep going with that of Jaylen Waddle. Well, guys, we've been talking about a lot of Dolphins players, right? When in the previous episode, check it out. We went through rounds 1 through 4, giving you different would you rathers. We hit on Tyreek Hill. We hit on Achane. And so these are guys you got to factor into the situation. He does have Tyreek Hill vying for opportunity. He does have Achane vying for opportunity. They did bring in Darren Waller. They do have Nick Westbrook-Akeen, and they do have Jalen Wright, right? These are all things you have to take into consideration. And then when you look at George Pickens, guys, we're completely flipped on our head here, because he's walking into a completely unknown situation, meaning Dak Prescott at the quarterback. Is Dak going to be what we've seen historically, or is he going to be hurt, and maybe does he come back to full form? We don't know. CeeDee Lamb is there. How is that going to work out when George Pickens isn't the true number one, and maybe there's a couple games to where we see him not get the targets? Is George Pickens going to have his head on straight? In addition, right, you have Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, Jalen Tolbert, Jake Ferguson. I mean, dude, the Dallas Cowboys have got some serious-ass weapons, very similarly to that of the Dolphins. So from a fact perspective, both of these teams could be offensive juggernauts.
Yeah, this one's really tough. I mean, we talked about in the last episode some of the issues that Tyreek had. We talked about that, and those issues don't go away. Those are a lot of the same issues for Jaylen Waddle as well. The one thing that concerns me with Jaylen Waddle, I mean, he's been pretty consistent. I mean, I think we're all still just remembering and kind of basking in the glory of his 2021 season.
Yeah.
That's where he really broke out. That was his rookie season. 140 targets, 100 catches, 6 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. The problem I have with Jaylen Waddle is that the 3 seasons after that, the arrow just keeps going down. It's a consistent downward trend in all categories, basically. In receptions, I mean, he had 140 targets in 2021. 2024 last year was 83. I mean, that's 60 different target difference there, man. I mean, it's just massive. Going from 104 catches to 58, 6 and 8 touchdowns those first 2 years to 2 last year. So
Yeah.
I'm concerned. I mean, when you look at a wide receiver 2, I'm not looking at a guy who's consistently going down year over year. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden 2 is going to be amazing. The offense has got it together this year. There are question marks there. For me, I would rather take that guy that has the arrow pointing up. Yes, it's question marks because it's a new team, it's a new offense, but it's a good offense. It's a good team. It's a good quarterback. It's a team that can get the ball out to a wide receiver too, and he's the kind of guy to do it. Do I think he's going to get more than 3 touchdowns? Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be open down the sideline often, with CeeDee Lamb doing whatever the hell he wants, taking all of the defense away from everybody. So for me, I'm going with George Pickens. I think his ceiling is much, much higher. There are going to be weeks that he's not going to do a whole lot for you. This is a flex play, okay? There's weeks that he's going to drop off and not do a thing for you. But I think you're going to have that with Jaylen Waddle too. I think there's going to be a lot of weeks with Jaylen Waddle just getting a couple of catches. And it may not be the big catches. A couple of catches for George Pickens means one of those could be a 50-yard touchdown. That's the difference in my mind. We haven't seen Jaylen Waddle do that for quite some time. We just haven't. So that's, for me, it's George Pickens all the way. I'd rather take the chance on that than take the chance on the second, maybe third look on the Miami Dolphins offense.
John, I'm with you, and I want to disagree. But unfortunately, man, George Pickens, I'm with you. And here's the situation, guys. Could we see, and maybe this is a hot take, maybe it's not, but could we see a very similar situation play out to where JuJu Smith-Schuster on the Steelers emerged as the receiver 2 next to Antonio Brown, right? Could we see George Pickens truly emerge as a badass receiver 2 in addition, like next to that of CeeDee Lamb? And when I mean emerge, I'm looking at JuJu's year next to Antonio Brown. When Antonio Brown went off, JuJu ended up having 166 targets, 111 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Could we see, I don't know if he'll have 1,400 yards, but could we certainly see 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 100 receptions? Guys, I think that's totally possible, and here's why. John, for me, the biggest call out is that the rushing attack for the Dallas Cowboys sucks. It's the reality. There's no ifs and buts about it. You can't get around it. Javonte Williams, we don't know how he's going to look. We have a very good history on him from the Broncos. And with the Broncos having a very good offensive line last year, he still sucked. Dare I say he was losing the job to Jalen McLaughlin, to where they actually drafted RJ Harvey in the second round and got J.K. Dobbins for some pennies, right? And so they shipped off Javonte to that of Dallas. And so now we're also hearing things coming out about Jaden Blue, right? The rookie that they took in the 5th round this year, who is supposed to be dynamic, which he was in Texas, but now he's coming out saying he's lazy and all of these other things. Guys, that doesn't bode any sort of like hype or goodness to that of the rushing attack of the Dallas Cowboys. So what does that mean? That means, once again, it's in Dak's hands, which it should be. You're the highest paid quarterback in the NFL on a per year basis at $60 million a year. So Dak Prescott, yeah, dude, you need to be slinging the rock. And this is exciting as well, John, because CeeDee Lamb has never had a true number 2 with him. CeeDee Lamb's had to do all of this since he came into the league, being drafted from Oklahoma. So guys, now you pair George Pickens with a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and if Dak Prescott can get it going, we could see Dak Prescott have a Cinderella type of year. We could see CeeDee Lamb have an excellent year. And dare I say, we could see George Pickens have a JuJu Smith-Schuster type of year, like what he had next to Antonio Brown, next to that of CeeDee Lamb. So I'm going with George Pickens, man. I'm locking it in. I just hope he keeps his mind right.
That's the difference for me too. I think
Seriously.
they're both right there, and yeah, he does have to keep his mind right.
He's got to keep his mind right.
I don't think Pickens is a great receiver, but I think both of these guys are good receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Pickens is more dangerous.
Yeah, I agree.
I want a little more taste of danger in my fantasy team. All right.
Yeah, love it.
All right, let's move on to round 7 here, Frank. All right, so round 7, here's the scenario. We waited on quarterback. Okay, we did not want to spend up on the big names at quarterback. We've loaded up. We've built a great team in the first 6 picks. We've got our starters all lined out. Everything looks wonderful. Now we're looking at our quarterback. Okay, so we're going to take a round 7 quarterback here, Frank. And the 2 guys we love and we're looking at are Kyler Murray versus Bo Nix. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyler Murray last year was the quarterback 11. Last year, Bo Nix was the quarterback 9. This year, Bo Nix's ECR projection is quarterback 8. Kyler Murray is quarterback 9. So here we go. Back-to-backsies, baby. What are we looking at? Talk to us about Kyler Murray and Bo Nix.
All right, guys, we're starting stats here first. We're looking at Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals. 2024, guys, he ended up playing a full slate. How about that, John? Full slate since 2020.
It's about time.
Crazy, right? So when we look at what he did in 2024, he had roughly 18 points per game in half PPR. And in addition, that equated to roughly he had 541 passing attempts, 372 completions. He threw the ball for 3,800 yards, which was actually interesting because, John, what's crazy to think, that's the second most he's done since he's been in the NFL. And guys, remember, he was a first overall draft pick his rookie year in 2019. And so then he also threw for 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But here's what was great to see again. He had 78 rushing attempts, 572 rushing yards, and he had 5 rushing touchdowns, tied for second most in his career. So overall, Kyler Murray really had a solid statistical year. And dare I say, we haven't even seen him actually at his peak. Now, when we start looking at Bo Nix, I mean, dude, I don't know if there was more of a Cinderella story than it was Bo Nix. Maybe you could argue Jaden Daniels, sure. But when you look at the expectations put on Jaden Daniels versus that of Bo Nix was way more of a Cinderella story. When you look at what he did as a rookie, 19 points a game on average for half PPR, unreal, man. I mean, absolutely unreal. Guys, he ended up having 567 attempts, 376 completions, almost 3,800 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, literally almost carbon copy of that of Kyler Murray, man. And then you look at what he did from a rushing perspective, very similar as well. We talked about Kyler with 78. We have him with Bo Nix at 92, 430 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Bo Nix was that dude as a rookie. And so, I mean, man, he's really showed out his rookie year, really did a good job. So let's talk about the facts, right? What's the situation? Well, let's start with Bo Nix. Bo Nix is walking into his sophomore year. Okay, that's the fact. The other fact is that they also added a plethora of resources around him. Guys, he had Cortland Sutton last year. He had Marvin Mims, and he had Vele last year, right? Awesome. They add in a rookie of Pat Bryant. They add in Evan Engram, who could be a superstar tight end for him. They also add RJ Harvey, who is going to be a stud. They're actually calling him Quadzilla 2.0. Check out those quads. It's pretty exciting, dare I say. And they also add in J.K. Dobbins, man. So you're telling me now you're going to have a much better rushing attack than you've ever had, and you added receiving options? Love that for that of Bo Nix. Now, when we look at Kyler Murray, we can also say something similar in the sense of they have Trey Benson. They have James Conner. They got the rushing attack locked up. They also have Marvin Harrison Jr. walking into his sophomore year. Now, let's be real with ourselves. Marvin Harrison had a down rookie year from expectation standpoint. But he didn't have that bad of a year, guys. I mean, his expectations were so high. Now you have Marvin Harrison Jr. faster than last year, bigger than last year, scarier looking and everything. And man, I mean, it's Marvin Harrison's season. And then you layer on Michael Wilson, who's been proven to be a solid receiver too. They bring in Zay Jones once more. They have Trey McBride, right? They have a full, well-rounded team around Kyler Murray as well. Again, these are the facts. John, I'm curious to see what your opinions are.
It's really tough, man. I mean, initially going into this, I thought, oh, this is so easy. I love Bo Nix. I'm going with Bo Nix. It's not even a question.
Yeah.
I am. I'm a big Bo Nix guy. So I thought this was going to be, I don't even have to look at it. I want Bo Nix. But it is tough because you do look at it, and we made such a big deal out of Bo Nix last year being a rookie and putting up the numbers he did. I mean, Kyler beat him in every category. I mean, pretty much. He had maybe a couple less touchdowns than, Bo Nix had a little more touchdowns, passing touchdowns than Kyler Murray. But that's about it. I mean, Kyler was right there in all of the other stat categories.
Yeah.
So the problem is we see a guy finish 3 years ago as the quarterback 2, and then your expectations, if he's not that again, you just don't draft the guy and you write him off completely. I find myself doing this, and you look at him and go, yeah, but he's the quarterback 10. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being the quarterback 10 or 11. I mean, that's a starting QB. That's fine. We all get caught up in the hype. We all like the next new thing, and the next new thing is Bo Nix. But looking at it, I do think that Bo Nix has a better opportunity this year. I do think that Kyler Murray will have a better year than he did last year. They have to. They have to figure out what was going on there with the connection between him and Marvin Harrison, with maybe some of the issues that Kyler Murray had. I think he's got that nice rushing floor that it doesn't kill you. That's the nice thing about it. So I think he's fine and he's safe. There is an upside to where if all of a sudden they do make that connection, Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray, you might have a really nice stack there. So, and that's a good point. If you're trying to decide between quarterbacks, a lot of times I'll use a stack as a tiebreaker. If I'm having a hard time deciding,
Good.
And yeah, I mean, because if you drafted Marvin Harrison and you're trying to decide between Bo Nix and Kyler Murray and it's hard, grab the stack and that'll make it a lot easier for you. Same with Cortland Sutton. Grab Bo Nix. I think those are going to be two excellent stacks for you. The Trey McBride. Maybe you went Trey McBride early. The Trey McBride, Kyler Murray stack is very nice. Yeah, I mean, that would be a tiebreaker for me, but it's so damn close. But I'm still going to take the upside potential of Bo Nix in a Sean Payton offense. I trust Sean Payton. I trust that they're going to make excellent decisions with the talent that they've, surrounded Bo Nix with. His rushing could come down a little bit. You tend to see that with young quarterbacks as they get more comfortable, as they have more talent around the team. He doesn't have to look at the first, second read and take off running. So his rushing could come down, but he's got that base. It's there. He can run some touchdowns in. That threat is there, and that could also open up the passing game for him. So I just see a brighter arrows pointing up for Bo Nix than I do with Kyler, but that's still right there. I still think they're going to finish very close to each other. I really do. Yeah.
John, it's interesting because I'm actually going to go the opposite here, man. I'm going Kyler Murray. That's who I'm taking. I'm taking Kyler Murray. And the reason being is because I think we're going to see a lot more rushing from him this year. And I think we're going to see a lot more out of the pocket kind of stuff. The scat, I saw something and I can't unsee it, right? Last year, there was a meme going around of Kyler Murray looks like a toddler that gets out of the pocket and just starts running everywhere. Right. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the toddler outside of the pocket running around making crazy ass plays. Right. Just, just fuck, man. You can't, it's hard to touch him, and his start and stop. I mean, it's crazy. And so then you layer on a year 2 with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, man. I just think it's incredible. And so for me, I like the upside that we haven't even eclipsed Kyler Murray's true potential yet. And right, and especially with a head coach that came on last year, the year before, so that's still working into a few things. So for me, I'm really liking that. And the bigger difference, and I know this is crazy because it's all speculation, but it's Bo Nix sophomore year, and what we saw, for me, I go back to C.J. Stroud. When we saw C.J. Stroud his rookie year, people were blown away. I was blown away. You were blown away. We were talking about this. The NFL world was blown away. And then he took a step back his sophomore year. There's more film. There's differences that come up, right? And so for me, man, could we see a sophomore slump? If I'm looking to draft a guy like this and in a round 7, which is still a very, very good round, like you're not drafting a backup, you're not drafting slop. Like you need to make sure you hit. So for me, I'm actually going to go with Kyler Murray because I think he has a nicer floor. I think that therefore, I know we've seen Kyler Murray, barring him getting injured or something like that, I only see upside for him. And so that's why I think there's more risk on Bo Nix's part. In addition, who Bo Nix has to play week in and week out from his division. That Chiefs defense is nasty. That Chargers defense is nasty. The Raiders are going to get better with that of Pete Carroll and things of that nature, and them paying Max Crosby and doing all this crazy shit. And yes, I understand that the Rams have a good defense and Seattle's fairly good. But guys, the 49ers are down. If you look at what they did from a defense perspective, they lost damn near everybody from a defense perspective. And then, yeah, the Rams have some really good young talent. But outside of that, man, there's not really much there in terms of, the other divisional kind of teams, right? So for me, man, knowing that Kyler Murray then has to play these kind of teams multiple times versus what Bo Nix does, and then you layer on sophomore year potential slump, again, completely assumptive and speculative. I just have seen it from a guy, in my opinion, who's a better overall quarterback in CJ Stroud. See what he's done? It sketches me out a bit. So I'm actually leaning Kyler Murray strictly because I don't think we've seen his ceiling yet. We may have seen Bo Nix's ceiling. We don't know. So for me, I'm going with a guy that I've seen a little bit more.
I love that we disagree. All right,
Yep.
Frankie's taking Kyler Murray. I am taking Bo Nix. All right, let's get to the last guy here, Frank. All right, we're coming into round 8, okay?
Okay.
Coming into round 8, our team is filled. Our team looks good. We're so happy. We're pumping our chest. We're drinking our beer. We're feeling so good.
God.
Yeah. We know it's smooth sailing from here on out, man. And we decide we're going to draft a tight end in round 8. Okay. We didn't get any of the big guys. We're punting a little bit. We're going round 8. 2 different guys we're looking at here. It's Mark Andrews versus Evan Engram. All right. Last year, Mark Andrews was the tight end 5. Last year, Mark Engram was the tight end 30. Okay. Interesting. Okay. This year, the ECR, where they're being drafted, expert consensus ranking, Mark Andrews is tight end 7. And Evan Engram is tight end 9. All right, Frankie, lay it out for us, man. What are we doing with Mark Andrews versus Evan Engram?
Guys, starting with the stats, baby. Let's look at Mark Andrews. 2024, he averaged roughly about 10 points a game in half PPR. Very solid. What does that equate to, guys? It's roughly about 69 targets, 55 receptions, 673 yards receiving, and 11 tutties. 11 touchdowns last year for Mark Andrews. Absolutely excellent. And boy, did we really see him come on towards the back half of that year. Front half of the year, not so much. It was a little bit sketchy. But now with Evan Engram, and John, you're right. Evan Engram didn't have a super great year, but that's because he was hurt, guys. He literally played 9 games, and not even all of those 9 games that he played was he healthy the entirety of those 9 games. So yes, that skews things a bit differently. But when we look at what he did, he had 64 targets, 47 receptions, 365 yards, and he had 1 touchdown in that time frame. Great. Let's look at the facts. The facts is, let's start with Evan Engram since we're on Evan Engram. The facts are tight ends in a particular situation with that of Sean Payton tend to perform very well, right? That's just what he does. He looks for an archetype of a certain type of player, and he then inputs them in the tight end joker role. And what we see is it's very, very successful. And so then when you look at what else is going on, we mentioned it with Bo Nix. They got RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins. Guys, this is a very, very good running core. This is better than what Jacksonville's had. This is better than anything Evan Engram has seen since he's been in the NFL, in my personal opinion. And then you also look at Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Vele, Pat Bryant, etc. They have some good, solid young receivers around him. And then obviously with that of Bo Nix that we just talked about, is able to get the ball out and was effective last year. Now, when you look at Mark Andrews, we know the Baltimore Ravens. right? We know they have King Henry. We know they have Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. They bring in D-Hop, right? Check it out, guys. D-Hop, we're going to talk about him a little. We talked about him quite a bit in our New Faces in New Places receivers episode. Check it out if you haven't got a chance. And then they also have Isaiah Likely. So for me, man, when you look at the facts and everything, it's kind of crazy because these two guys are extremely interchangeable, when you're looking at drafting either one.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. I like it because looking at their stats, it is difficult because you only had Evan Engram play 9 games last year.
Yeah.
And Mark Andrews, screw Mark Andrews. I traded him after the first couple of weeks because he wasn't doing shit. And then he went off and scored like every single week. Damn it. That's my big concern with Mark Andrews is Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely's been a thing when Mark Andrews misses time, which Mark Andrews does. He loves to do. Let's just be perfectly honest. But Mark Andrews, I mean, he's a damn good tight end, man. I mean, you look at his season stats and you start getting a little, last year, great. He was a tight end 5. Year before that, a little down year. He had a tight end 12, but 21 and 22, I mean, he was a tight end 1 in 21 and the tight end 5 in 22. That's when he was up to 153 targets, 113 targets. The last 2 years, he's been in the 60s. So that's really what's happened there. Now, the reason why he was the tight end 5, his stats aren't great. He had 11 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 touchdowns.
Crazy.
That is not a sticky stat. It is not something that is transferable year over year and something you can count on. Unless it's the tush push for Jalen Hurts, you can't count on those touchdowns happening every week or every year. It's just not possible. Now, with Evan Engram, I take a look at Evan Engram, not a ton from last year to really look at because he did only play 9 games. But you look at Evan Engram, the 2 seasons prior to that, 2022, 2023 with Jacksonville. He was healthy, played full season, 17 games in each of those years. He was the tight end 6 in both of those years. We're looking at 98 targets, 143 targets, and that's only with 4 touchdowns. So he's just much more involved tight end in the offenses. Mark Andrews kind of hit pay dirt in the red zone. Otherwise, he would have been not a tight end 1 otherwise without those 11 touchdowns. Engram can do it as a player. And Engram now with Sean Payton, with Bo Nix, he's going to be a part of that offense. It's Cortland Sutton and then a bunch of guys that are going to help out. That's what that is with Vele, with Marvin Mims. They're good players, yes, but they're young. They need, polished, and, they're not going to take tons and tons of targets away from Evan Engram. I think having a young quarterback with a safety valve of a tight end like Evan Engram is going to help Bo Nix. Again, a great stack, I think, if you can get the Evan Engram. Yeah. And a cheap stack when we're looking at it. Cheap.
Very.
We're talking round 7 and 8. You can do the stack right there. Bo Nix, Evan Engram the very next round. I'm going with Evan Engram on this one. I want the young talent who doesn't have somebody who's very young and good breathing down his neck and that can do it without the touchdowns. I am not having big eyes on those 11 touchdowns and hoping that repeats because we've seen it in history. Likely it won't. I'd rather take the guy at the same statistical value that had 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, and if he can increase those to 6 to 8 as well, you've got a much better tight end for you. So I'm going with Evan Engram, man.
John, I like it, man. And I got to be honest with you. I was leaning Mark Andrews up until really last night. And I say that because I wanted to dig in further. And it's contract year. That's the big difference for me. It's contract year for Mark Andrews. In addition to that, guys, he's almost 30. So when you look at his prior contract, he already signed a 4-year, $56 million deal. They have a young buck and Isaiah Likely who, dude, is talented. He is super talented, waiting in the wings for an opportunity to be the guy. So for me, man, looking at, and yes, do I think Mark Andrews is going to be good? Yes, I think he's going to be good. Do I also think that he has something to prove after he had that drop against the Buffalo Bills? Hell yeah, I think he has something to prove. And I think he's going to come back with some fire. But the reality is that I don't think Mark Andrews will be a Raven next year unless they decide to get rid of Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews takes something super cheap, which I think they wouldn't do. In addition, man, they brought on D-Hop. So when you bring on D-Hop, he's definitely, no matter how you slice it, you look at what D-Hop did in Kansas City. People are like, oh, yeah, he's just going to be doing cardio. Well, the reality is he did a little bit more than that. And he definitely took away from some of that of Travis Kelce, which I could see them also doing from that of Mark Andrews. Because again, we mentioned you do have Zay Flowers, you do have Bateman, who they just gave a contract to. And now you bring in D-Hop as a veteran leader here, who's going to be helping on the outside. And where did D-Hop do well last year? Red zone. And that is where Mark Andrews thrived from a touchdown perspective. That's going to even out, guys. It would be crazy shocking to see him have double-digit touchdowns again. Mark Andrews, I just don't see it. So that's why, man, I'm with you. I'm leaning Evan Engram because they brought this cat in. They chose him. There's a difference here. They're choosing Evan Engram in the offseason. They paid him a 2-year contract. He's walking into a perfect style offense for what Evan Engram does very well with Sean Payton. And on top of it, man, Bo Nix and him, there's already been speculation and talk that that's his guy. Like, they're really building this connection off the field already and in practice and camp. So for me, I'm really excited about Evan Engram. I'm really excited about his reception uptick. I think that he's only going to help Bo Nix in this offense. And yes, do I think that RJ Harvey, in the same breath as what I'm talking about, we'll see an uptick in receptions from Evan Engram? Do I also think RJ Harvey's going to take some receptions away? Of course I do. But I don't think it's going to be for an Evan Engram. I think Vele could see a decrease in receptions. I think we could see Courtland Sutton has his own thing going on. I think he's going to be fine. But Marvin Mims, is he going to officially break out? Or is he going to be a guy like a Michael Wilson type of cat for the Arizona Cardinals to where, yeah, he's a good player. Good player. Good burner. But there's nothing really more than that. Right? Which is, there's value there. That's not what I'm saying. But it's nothing from a fantasy perspective to get you over the top. So for me, yeah, man, I'm going to go Evan Engram as well. I think also Evan Engram has a little bit more risk. I want to be crystal clear on that. I think from an injury perspective, what we've seen, I think also going into a new offense, it might take a few additional weeks for him to get going. So I think that there are all these other factors in play. But I do think come end of season, we'll look back, presumably both are healthy, and we'll be like, hey, Evan Engram, we could see him crack a top 6 kind of tight end perspective. ECR has him listed at 9. I think he could crack top 6.
All right. I love it, man. That is the Would You Rather rounds 5 through 8. I love that, man. Yeah. All right. So we're looking at this. So we did, we both agree that we want Chuba. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Over James Conner.
That's correct.
All right. Round 6, we had George Pickens and Waddle. I took George Pickens. We both took George Pickens, correct?
Both took Pickens, yep.
Okay. And then round 7, we disagreed here with the quarterback. Yeah. You wanted Kyler Murray, and I took Bo Nix. And we both agreed that Evan Engram was a little better option for us than Mark Andrews at tight end. All right. I love it, man. Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. That is the Would You Rather episodes that we put out here for you. Please don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It's going to let you know every time we drop a new episode. Speaking of, Frankie, what else do we have coming up, baby?
Ooh, get ready, guys. We're going to be diving in balls deep to some mock drafts, guys. So we're going to be doing mock drafts as much as we can possibly do. And we're going to be posting those. We're going to do a bunch of different variations. We're going to be diving into different strategies. And to that perspective, some of the other types of episodes, we're going to shift gears, guys. We mentioned it in the last Would You Rather, rounds 1 through 4. But just to give you guys some ideas of what's coming down the pike here, we got steals of the draft, meaning who do we think is going to be an absolute steal in your particular drafts? And then we're going to do a generational episode. We're getting Johnny Boy Gen Xer with a millennial and myself, and we're going to bring on a Gen Zer to get their perspective as well. And then we're going to also hit on handcuffs, draft strategies, and flyers, and then bringing us full circle to our champions, which is, John, that's one of the most fun episodes, man. So we got a ton coming for you.
All right. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. They are going apeshit. Let's go. Get in on the conversations, guys. We got a lot of arguments going on about who people would rather have over what we talked about. So get into the argument, man. Let's see if we can have some fun here, guys. All right. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.